Well, I believe that glyphosate causes cancer. I believe that masks, that there's no...
It starts with a simple question and ends in objective reality. Through our journey from there to here, we find one another and ourselves. And as the next 24 hours breaks free from our last, we gaze onward in reflection of the day.
Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up.
Friday, February 20th, 2026. Thank you for joining me today. Another unfortunate day in the MAHA, well, in the health of this country. Very frustrating, even for those of us that are constantly calling it out, left or right, Biden or Trump, just the lies being put forward by our government, by the partisanship. It's still disappointing. Yeah, I've been talking about glyphosate and the issues around that in a lot of different ways, pretty much my entire career doing this. And it's been one of the most obvious parts in general, there's been study after study after study, but specifically in the pesticide conversation or the, agricultural, it's been so unbelievably demonstrated to be a danger. And so you just kind of have hope. Like maybe I was hoping that maybe Donald Trump would use that to throw a bone. And I'll take it. I'll take the positive step, even if it's to pacify his audience. And here we are. So if you haven't seen, Donald Trump has made glyphosate a national security imperative. And it just doesn't, it just seems like it can't go far enough for people to stop, for some people to stop supporting this person. And I still have not even moved away from the possibility that this is something that's beyond his control. In fact, I think that's far more logical than anything else we're watching. I don't think it's even in him to continually do, in a reputational sense, what he keeps doing to himself. In any case, the glyphosate conversation is very important because it connects with a lot of different factors in the health. And we're going to get into even the geopolitical conversation in regard to using it as a weapon. But the reality of this, an endocrine disrupting chemical conversation, dealing with the trans conversation or any other elements within that, or just generally the ubiquitous nature of what it has become and what that means for your health. Or having RFK Jr. tell you that it's dangerous, or his previous vice president running, his running mate also saying any number of people that were being put forward as MAHA now, bottom line being contradicted by what Trump is doing. So it's sort of a moment of it's a decision to be made. If you understand how dangerous this is and you believe it's important to stop, like pretty much anybody, again, in the MAHA movement, meaning people who genuinely want to make America healthy again, not the politicians pretending to be MAHA, it's important to frame it that way. The MAHA movement, in my mind, are the people that actually believe that, not the politicians and fake partisan grifters who leaned into that to get you to support them. So in a way, you have people who are covering this accurately, but sort of like calling the MAHA movement dishonest. I don't think that's the right way to frame that, if you get what I'm saying. But we're going to talk about primarily glyphosate and how important that is, and clear and go through the studies and stuff that we've covered a lot, but I'm going to go through some of the important ones again so you guys can see those and use them as it's sort of like the COVID-19 conversation, right? When it all started, you had all these partisans and, from both sides, because remember, Trump told you it was a good thing, trying to argue that this was somehow positive. And, and we were right there with the science going, well, that's not what it shows you. I'm not an expert, but here's what it is showing you. That's not what they're saying. Things like that were very clear. And even then, you could have argued it was not necessarily bad for you, but you could have still been like, yeah, but he's lying about that, or that's not accurate. That's where we are again, and have been for a very long time with everything we discussed. But if you're for the first time hearing about this, the evidence is here if you want to look. They know it's dangerous. Their own studies have shown it's dangerous. They've been caught lying about their studies to cover up that it's dangerous. There's been examples where for example, left and right governments have been caught paying, or rather, paying to manipulate studies, but also basically using Monsanto's own study to justify why it's safe when everybody else says it's dangerous, including their own work. It's a cover-up, like a lot of other things. how my mind works. If you watch this show, I always want to go into all the connected points, and I have some to connect it today, but I'm trying to stay focused on this one. But, dioxins, and, this is a fraction of a very real, gigantic, almost insurmountable problem because it's so ubiquitous is the right word for it. Glyphosate is such a perfect example. And the question is, has it been made this way so it's impossible to deal with, even just that alone, just because they want to make money and they realize if they make it everywhere, there's no way you can really ever deal with it or claim that it was their fault? Or is it being made ubiquitous for some reason on top of that? And that's the way they make sure it never goes away. There's all these ways to think about it, but the one thing you can't really decide, is based on the evidence, is that they're doing this because they believe it's good for you, or that it's healthy for you, or that they're not, that they're just being dishonest about how this is being applied. I don't even understand why they would argue this is a national security issue when what they're really doing is saying, because we forced you to be reliant on this, now it's become a national security. Well, yeah, so you're basically admitting you did this to us. But anyway, I digress. We're going to get into all this today. I'm also going to talk about a brief point about the tariff discussion, just since it's relevant to what's going on and in a distractionary sense as well, but also a quick point about the Board of Peace, just to start. Really quick, actually. And then the entire part today is about glyphosate, because we have been covering this for a long time as the independent media. And I'm actually, like I said to start there, I'm actually really shocked of all the things that this would be the direction. They know this is going to be an important point for MAHA, so why would he do it? Again, I don't know. I think that shows you that this is not him or his, I don't think they're making decisions like we think they are to make it as objective as possible. Why? You could have done this, for example, with glyphosate in a much more, a less bombastic way, something quieter, something that wasn't as, but it's calling attention to it. I tend to think that's because somebody else wants that. Keep that in your mind as we go through the entire show today. Now, starting with a couple quick points about the Board of Peace that I didn't want you to miss. Just as always, it's just my route. I tend to include some of these. There's probably 7 or 8 articles that I think are really good around this main point, whether it's globalism or the point of the technocracy. And I tend to include some here and there, but I'll include these today because the point you're going to hear about the Board of Peace is an extension of what we've been telling you. And now you're paying for it, like we told you would, despite all of the mainstream alternative grifters out there screaming that wasn't the possibility. The fake globalist resistance ushering in the globalist plan. It's a perfect way to understand what I think we're seeing. That's a good show we did on that, as well as one that I discussed, the bigger picture of the Trump and the Zionist globalist technocrats are building your new society, whether it's a network state discussion or just anything else we're talking about, the Great Reset, which is happening and is being driven forward by all sides of this government. It's whether you like it or not, but also the point that ties to today, which is connected. As Trump goes to Davos and they say globalism is dead, and then literally outlines his globalist agenda, which is not my opinion, guys. This is a globalist by the definition of the word plan. Trump's Board of Peace, which is not national, it's not just the United States. It is a globalist. It is a new UN dynamic. That's what it is. So if you're being dishonest about that, well, I shouldn't have started like that, but if you're doing it like that, you're being dishonest. At the end of the day, you can't call this anything but globalist. You can, and maybe you don't even disagree with that. Just being honest about the terms. Gaza's Board of Peace seeks to reimagine the international order, and this is ultimately the point. So based on this, especially with the point of, lowering costs and making it America first. So at this point now, on top of everything, and before I go past it, I'm trying to make it quick. For those that don't know the conversation, let's not forget that this is about Gaza, right? This is the ongoing genocide and the idea that you're creating a new society on top of the bones of people you claimed you were trying to save, and acting like this in any way will involve Palestinians. If you actually care to look, not what he says or what Netanyahu says or what the ridiculous media or mainstream alternative says, but just look at their own documentation, there's no part of this for the Palestinians. And in fact, right now, they're claiming the Palestinians are the reason everything's not working. It's insane what we're watching. But on top of that, the reality of the genocide and what they're doing to these people and how everything we always told you was going to happen and they yelled wasn't going to happen is now literally happening. They're making you pay for it, which again, for the third time, we told you was going to happen because it was pretty clear that this was going to involve the United States and that Israel, of course, was going to make somebody else foot the bill for their genocide. $10 billion of U.S. taxpayer dollars for the Board of Peace. Right now you have people, even under this post, by the way, going, that's not true. It's going to be donated and it's going to be completely paid for by other countries, without even realizing that Trump's saying this to you.
I want to let you know that the United States is going to make a contribution of $10 billion to the Board of Peace. Thank you. And we've had great support for that number. And that number is a very small number when you look at that compared to the cost of war.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you compare it to your genocide, it's easy to do that. Well, both are bad, Trump. How about that? Both sides are bad.
That's 2 weeks of fighting. It's a very small number. It sounds like a lot, but it's a very small number. So we're committed to $10 billion. Together we can achieve the...
Okay. So if you're confused, that means you're paying for that. Now, in some abstract way, you could try to warp this into some, bottom line, if the U.S. government is spending money, you're paying for that. Yes, it may not amount to exactly that but at the end of the day, that's where this money comes from. And that's what is going to happen. Not other country, but that's the money he's pointing to. Now, there's other money that I guarantee is going to flow through this project because all of them are enriching themselves off of this genocide. And let's be clear as well, if you don't know this by now, maybe if you get sucked into the partisan game, which we all do time to time, if you're doing this, I myself fall into it, even as I know it's not the majority. It's pretty clear that the majority of Americans, based on, you can even listen to Tucker Carlson will tell you this if that makes any difference for you. The majority of Americans see this, guys, left and right. This is not okay. They don't agree with this. They see the genocide. It's being called out. That's the same metric for the damn everywhere in the world right now. It's one of those crazy points where in the beginning, that was my opinion. Remember when I was like, it seems like everybody sees this. Aside from the fact that it was obvious, and it's the same point you could make about the ICE point and plenty of others, and it's the same thing. The truth is, when you really dive into it, it's obvious that even people that don't have a partisan side, if they're honest, can still recognize that's not what you're looking at. And this was clear from the very early on point in this conversation. $10 billion. Now, here's another clip, and this is the same point. This goes to the Gaza technocracy side of it, which again, how crazy it is to me that this stuff can be so prevalent in the conversation, and yet right over here, like a hair's breadth away, you're over here going technocracy bad and we have to stop the Great Reset, and Democrats are doing this at Davos, and they're doing it right in front of you, right there, building it out. Digital money, digital control structure. It is exactly what we're talking about. And even crazier, the Peter Thiels of the world and Mark Andreessens, they're the ones funding this larger project in regard to the Freedom City network state dynamic, and they're involved in this project. And funding as well, by the way. Now, so the bigger point is the Freedom City, technocracy, network state, Gaza. It is the same conversation in principle, in practice, what they're doing, what they're building, the idea. And that has to be terrifying with what we're watching them do and how everyone's enriching themselves off of this project, So here is Muhammad Shihada pointing out something they just recently said, Dropsite News actually posting it, about what Gaza will be. Now, you don't need to hear this for other than this actual, people still question that this is genuine. It is, and it's easy to prove, but the actual plan that they released, but to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. That's what they're doing right here.
When we asked the NCAG what Gaza needs to unlock its potential, the answer was clear. Reconnect Gaza to the world, digitally and economically.
Yeah, well, which was the case until Israel stopped that. Now, there's always going to be those screeching people with nothing to back it up that yell that's not true, or that it's because they hate Jews. It's just not true, guys. And you can prove it if you actually care. It's just exhausting having to always push back the minority of people screaming and that people back away from because they don't want to be called racist. The truth, though, is just like with Christians in Gaza, they were removed and forced out by Israel. It's actually easy to prove. So too are the origin points of this conversation. It's built into this. So if you're saying to reconnect them, well, yeah, there was an easy answer to that. Israel's the one stopping that. The answer is not genocide them into nothing and then pretend that we're saving them by letting Israel control the area and calling it Gaza, or rather whatever they call it next.
And replace corruption with an open, tax-free system.
Oh, great. So whoever ends up living there, likely the extremist Jewish settler population that's already rolling into Gaza, that they just call the new Palestine, they get to have a tax-free world. Great, off the back of your taxes. Think about it, whatever you think is happening and whatever you think, whether you agree with everything. You're over here paying taxes like crazy so Israelis can have free healthcare and free education and then build a new society on the bones of a dead one that they created of people they're murdering in real time and let them be tax-free. Off your time. Think about this. It's so insulting that anybody, the conservatives are out here thinking that this is America first, that we're winning, it's all going in that direction. It's a one insult after another.
Gaza was once a vital trade hub between Asia and Europe. Reconnection is a return to its roots. Even the word Gauze comes from Gaza, where silk was woven and exported to Europe.
Well, that's going to bother
So,
you.
we brought together Palestinian, Arab, and American partners to deliver practical solutions. By July, Gaza's 2G network will be upgraded with free, high-speed access to essential services. The NCAG is building a secure digital backbone, an open platform, enabling e-payments, financial services, e-learning, and healthcare with user control over data. This effort is supported by our regional partners, and I believe you will hear some exciting news from them on that later today. In parallel, we're advancing an Amazon-like logistics system to help Palestinian launch business.
I mean, this is all freedom and liberty stuff, right? This is exactly what everyone's calling for, right? Amazon, like emulating the technocratic society, building digital money and tokenized everything and freedom. I mean, literally nobody's calling for this other than the insider elitists trying to make this happen and claiming it's what we want.
Businesses import globally and trade securely. This will lower prices, drive growth, and help transform Gaza into an open, transparent, corruption-free economic zone. Thank you.
Yeah, and people making fun of the guy. I don't know who it is either, but it's probably just some guy they got to read this, and so they didn't have to be the ones explaining why your technocratic future was being built for you. But as Steve writes, this is the exact same currency model the U.S. wants for Americans. Same with the UK, EU, Russia, China, and every other nation we live on planet Gaza. Now, where this goes matters. Now, that's not going to just because it happens in Gaza, therefore it will happen everywhere else. But realize that this is the same conversation. All of this, everything we told you, everything that's building out. I mean, think of how crazy it is that we can be talking about this kind of thing happening. And in the beginning, it was like, no, we're just trying to get Hamas out of the way. We're trying to save some people. And then it literally ends up that not only do they kill everybody and do everything we told you they would, then they build a technocratic city on top of it. I mean, it's almost like they want you to be, it's like they want you to see what they're doing. They're laughing at you. We're going to go ahead and build that technocratic thing you all said was fake news right on top of the genocide that we claim isn't happening. It's wild where we are, but how it can be so obvious. And this is, I've said this 1,000 times. It's everything we're dealing with. That's the post-truth world. They've created this where they know that they can just tell you the facts and then just pretend that's not true or just not do anything. And enough people, not even close to the majority, but enough of them that just pretend like all of you aren't doing anything, will, I guess, pacify the rest. Here is True Stream Media. Interesting Department of War propaganda released on the same day Trump announces he's taking $10 billion out of the U.S. Treasury without approval, by the way, from Congress, because no big deal. We don't care about anything other tan Trump saying things are good. And transferred to the Board of Peace slush fund that he created and made himself chairman for life of, let's not forget, for life, for an international body. And takes money from you, puts it into this slush fund that you have no control over, and call that anything other than, I mean, that's theft. That's crime. That's corruption. But here's what they post right after that. This is Department of War, CTO, with this very weird, almost ominous looking, like horror looking picture of Trump. You can't win, so don't try. That's what the U.S. government just posted on Twitter. Department of War. You can't win, so don't try. Now, sure, we could guess all day long. He means Iran. He means secretly Israel because save them for last, or whatever ridiculous assumption is going on in people that want to pretend like this is somehow positive. Guys, I agree with the people. It's opinion, like it all is. I agree with the people that are saying this is aimed at all of us. Epstein files, anything. Don't even try anymore because they see that people are starting to go, you know what? This is what I think anyway. There's something off here. Biden, Trump, government, the whole thing. I'm starting to feel a pattern here. We're not that stupid. And we can tell that we keep getting gaslit and lied, astroturf. And suddenly now that people are finally going, how about we just stop the whole game? They're just trying to scare you back into place. That's my personal opinion. You can't win, so don't try. You know what? They don't post that unless they know you can win. Why would they even put that out there? I think at the end of the day, we are already winning. And that's why people in power are worried. You can decide for yourself. Now, on the tariff point of this, which is another interesting overlap, different conversation, but speaks to the real, the contradiction of what we claim we're fighting for in regard to the Constitution, liberty, freedom, all the things they claim they're trying to support. And ultimately what this amounts to, as Rand Paul and Massey and anybody who's actually at least emulating, and I only say that to be objective because I'm not sure, America first. Right now, I believe that they're both leaning into this direction. Though I would argue, though, I don't know whether it's opportunism or not. I'm a pessimist. Obviously, when it comes to government, our history makes us, we should be looking at it that way. But I'll go ahead and add right now, on the point of like the opportunism I keep discussing, for those that don't know what I mean by that, I think that politicians today, politicians in general, are just in it. They're in it for themselves. I think we can see that by now. And so we need to motivate them and give them the motivation to lean into the truth, whether or not they believe in it or care about it. I mean, in a perfect world, of course, they would believe in it. They'd fight for it. I hope we have that. But seeing as how we don't know for sure, and we never really will, we should just hope that they at least acknowledge it and consistently lean into the truth, or what we believe is the truth and what's accurate. So my point is, when Israel and currently our government structures out there lying to us every day about everything, and you got people even dishonestly, which is my gut, Marjorie Taylor Greene, so on, I shouldn't say dishonestly, just not with the best intention, come out and tell you that unpopular truth. I go, yes, thank God that's the truth right there. I don't trust the person, but I'm going to elevate that and show some of these newer politicians, hey, wait a minute. Look at what she just did right there. Look, she's got 10 million views on that. Clearly Americans want that, and they know that. And so try to show some of these new people who aren't completely taken by Israel and lobbied into the ground. Maybe I can start using the truth to benefit my career. Still profiteering, still opportunism. But if we can start motivating more of them to do that, well, then what do you know? Suddenly it's in their interest to promote the truth. They could profit from doing that. See how that works? Now, that shouldn't be the end game. We should drive it to a place to where it is. But the point overall is I think that's happening. Here, and Rand Paul's kind of a bad example because I think he's been more than most of them, has been pretty consistent with his principles and his actions. But I've seen plenty. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example, but numerous examples over the years where I'm like, okay, he's playing the game. He pulled that punch. He didn't bring this up, and we know he knows that. But that's politics for you. I can few and far between. Maybe if I can't even remember examples of Ron Paul doing that. I'm sure they're there, but less here. But Massey lately has been knocking it out of the park. I mean, it doesn't say I trust him. In fact, the opposite. I'm more skeptical. But you can see that he's been consistently doing what we argue is actually what America First would look like, what Republicans actually call for, and he's getting a lot of support for it, but a lot of hate and attacks and even threats from the higher up level. I think Rand Paul is now starting more and more, at least in my view, to do that. Whether it's because he believes it was probably the case, but I think also because he's recognizing that this is what people are gravitating towards, like flocking towards. So all that aside, I just want to put that in there too, because I do think we should keep doing that and not just go, oh, well, I'm going to ignore that because I don't like the guy saying it. You know, I mean, we all do that time to time, and sometimes it is important. But anyway, so he says, first, actually, Craig posts this, and you might have already seen this going around. Supreme Court has now ruled 6-3 that Donald Trump does not have the legal authority to impose global tariffs. He doesn't, by the way, under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Remember, I said this right in the beginning of this tariff conversation, on top of the fact that there's simply taxes on you at the end of the day. It's very simple to understand, actually, outside of all the ways they try to complicate it. At the end of the day, what does it amount to? It's pretty simple. Chief Justice Roberts wrote for the majority, the IEEPA, that's the International Emergency Economics Powers Act, it does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. Okay. So this is causing everybody to lose their minds. Oh, un-American. Oh, the court hates everybody. Let's not forget, I think it's majority actually Republicans, or at the very least, it's more. I forget the number. Give me in the chat what the breakdown was in the Supreme Court again. Again, technically, they don't even like publicize their side, but they usually go on who appoints them, and I think typically it's. I thought it was more than half. But anyway, let me know in the chat if you remember what the breakdown was. But the point is there's Republicans on the Supreme Court. So it's not just one side versus the other. And it's 6-3. So it shows you that there were Republicans that supported this. Now, the real point is that this is the reality. Like, you can disagree with it. You can even argue that this should have happened because it'll save America. Maybe I disagree, but you could argue that. But what you can't argue is that this was legal or constitutional, because it was not. And what he was doing originally, as Rand wrote again, he said this in the beginning, in defense of our republic, the Supreme Court struck down using emergency powers to enact taxes. Now, not necessarily that Trump doesn't have influence or power involved in that conversation, but using emergency powers to enact taxes. I mean, you could even get into the conversation of executive order, quite frankly, because it's a different conversation. But the point is that the way that this has all been going has been ruled by dictate from the powers from one person. As I've been saying for years, that is not what we pretend we are. It's not. This ruling will also prevent a future president. Obviously, this is the important part to make for people that think that somehow Trump will do it, even though it's wrong, and it'll still work out for everybody. This new ruling will stop people like potentially AOC's presidency or whatever the next Democrat presidency will be from having emergency powers to enact fill in the blank socialism, he writes. See, it's amazing we can't think that through. Like, what are we going to pretend that somehow they'll never end up in that position again? If you believe that's what they would do, even though it's not as simple as saying or enact socialism, but he's using it to make a point. So this is a Republican and argue one with a much better track record than most of the rest of them screaming America first. Now, this guy, who I'm not even familiar with like who he is or what he does, but he's prominent, I've seen him commenting on other things. He's very partisan, clearly, almost 160,000 followers. Christian nationalism, he says in his bio. And he says underneath Rand Paul, you disingenuous CUCK. It's being done right now to protect the republic from the fascist that you and your other Republicans are too, CUCK to stand up against. Okay. Your father should be ashamed of you, Rand Paul. Okay. Well, wait a minute. So he's saying it's being done right now, meaning Trump's, if I take it correctly, Trump's tariffs. So you're saying that he's doing something that we can clearly show by Supreme Court or otherwise is not actually allowed to stop them. Okay, well, fine. That's my point. Maybe you agree with that, but you have to acknowledge that you're doing the wrong thing to counteract the wrong thing, I guess. And all that does is enshrine forever that the presidents can teeter-totter back and forth doing the wrong thing. Right? I mean, how do you not recognize that, Pastor Ben? How do you not recognize, only way that would make sense is if you think that this move will end in a way that means they'll never be able to have power over this again, which is what they all secretly think. That there are going to be Republicans and Trump forever. It's childish. And if it's genuinely what you think or even possible, well, that would be unconstitutional. See, they don't seem to care about most of these things. This person just made fun of him by posting whatever that is. But it's frustrating, is it not? Now, even if you agree with him, you have to acknowledge that this ultimately should be, anything that we're doing should be done the legal way, the constitutional way. Otherwise, all you do is continue to undermine the founding documents that we all pretend we're fighting for. Simple. Thomas Massey points to another Republican and says, some have asked me to comment on the Supreme Court ruling striking down tariffs based on emergency declaration by the executive. That's all it's really about. Why should I comment when Gorsh has already nailed it right here? Here's what he says. For those who think it is important, and this needs to be heard by, you could disagree, mind you, obviously, but for those that believe this is a left versus right discussion, it's not. You're getting that from the Alex Jones, Nick Sorter types of the world because they're desperate to keep you both distracted, divided, and unaware that they're ridiculous today. For those who think it is important for the nation to impose more tariffs, he says, I understand that today's decision will be disappointing. All I can offer them is that most major decisions affecting the rights and responsibilities of American people, including the duty to pay taxes and tariffs, are funneled through the legislative process for a reason. And yes, legislating can be hard and take time. And yes, it can be tempting to bypass Congress when some pressing problem arises. But the deliberative nature of the legislative process was the whole point of its design. Even if it goes, I'll add, by the way, even if it goes in a direction that you don't agree with. Though, or through that process, the nation can tap the combined wisdom of the people's elected representatives, not just that of one faction or man. If you disagree with that, then you don't believe in a republic or constitution of this country. Their deliberation tempers impulse and compromise, hammers disagreements into workable solutions. And because laws must earn such broad support to survive the legislative process, they tend to endure, allowing ordinary people to plan their lives in ways that they cannot when the rules shift from day to day, or I'll add presidency to presidency. In all, the legislative process helps ensure each of us has a stake in the laws that govern us and in the nation's future. For some today, the weight of those virtues is apparent. For others, it may not seem so obvious. But if history is any guide, the tables will turn and the day will come when those disappointed by today's result will appreciate the legislative process for the bulwark of liberty it is. Now, that's not to say that you have to agree with the legislative process currently working the way it's supposed to, or that, as I would point out, that government should exist at all. But regardless of your opinion about this, and this is why it's important to say that, you can still look at this and understand that within the process we're forced to exist in, which is a state of society, that this does, or I should rather point, is the reality of how this is supposed to work. Now, that's my point to this. I disagree. I don't think the government should be involved. I don't think any of this should exist at all. But that's not to say that means we should, ultimately that Well, that's a bad way to frame that. Again, my point is I don't agree with the government being existing at all. Back to the point, if we're existing within a government society or a statist society, the point would be not to, if you're in this and applying to those laws, that you should not break those laws to then sort of force them back into place. If we're going to get rid of all of it, then let's do that. And let's not allow some of it to exist so they can have power, but all of it entirely. In fact, I didn't mention this to start. I had a great interview today with a person named Matthew Sands from Nations of Sanity. I'm going to release it most likely tomorrow. And this is about basically a proposed sort of peace agreement for the world, that the only law becomes the non-aggression principle. It's an interesting thought. Now, as always, it seems highly unlikely that it would be implemented or that it would be allowed, but it is worth your consideration and is no more or less ridiculous the way that it's hard to map out than the laws we discuss today. That's all to be said. My point is that there are other avenues, but since we're here, whether you disagree with him or not, what he's describing is how it's supposed to work. That's what I'm really meaning by saying that. And so for people that are out here claiming that what they're doing by the opposite of this is to save this, it's contradictory. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And in fact, it's being proven to be the opposite when you look at the outcome. And it's been going on for quite a while. Now, as Liam McCollum rightly points out, by the way, Gorsuch's reasoning that I just read to you today with regard to the legislative power also applies to war powers and the power to declare war. And yes, anybody knows this who's been paying attention, or people in Congress who don't care about it right now. They know this. They just don't care. Right now, everything, every act of war, whether you declare war for an official, and a bombing, everything, these are supposed to be something that goes through congressional approval, and they don't care left or right. Now, J.D. Vance comes on the scene and does his same old sycophantic dance. Whatever Trump said is the truth. Whatever, no matter how dumb I look by trying to argue. And here's what's so funny to me right now. There's so many, and look, I could list them all off again. It's all the people you already know. It's like they're the top 10 most ridiculous list of the people out there who will yell for whatever the team says. You know who they are. It's embarrassing. Even Republicans make fun of them today. My point is that you have these people on this platform that acts like everyone's in the same, their own platform continues to call them out for their lies. And yet they still seem to populate through the conversation. It's because we live in a post-truth world that they have created. Vance says, today, the Supreme Court decided that Congress, despite giving the president the ability to regulate imports, didn't actually mean it. You see, he's playing on people's stupidity. Deliberately. That means he hates you. That means he thinks that little of you. The point is, emergency powers is what we're talking about, which is right there in the documentation, which is right there in the actual Supreme Court case. He knows that. Not that you can't do those things, but you can't do it the way that you did it. He knows that, guys. He's just trying to trick you. You think I'm wrong? Explain it for me then. Or the only alternative is that he's too stupid to know that, or he doesn't understand it. He's wrong. That's pretty scary. But he says this is lawless from the court. Hardly. It's literally a legal ruling within the law. I mean, it's ridiculous. Plain and simple. He said it's only because they don't get what they want, guys. That's what comes down. That Matt Miller comes out and goes, judicial coup. Democrat radicals. Well, there's Republicans too, bud. And it's not a coup. It's clearly the exact way this process is supposed to work. And it says, and its only effect will be to make it harder for the president to protect American industries and supply chain resiliency. What he's doing is hurting the supply chain, including the glyphosate move we're going to get into next, by the way. But it says President Trump has a wide range of other tariff powers, and he will use them to defend. Basically, what he's saying is we're going to do it anyway, in some way or another, which is what's happening. But it says the ruling upholds the Constitution. You got to love that, guys, which, as I keep seeing, by the way, these things have a tendency to slowly dissipate. Somebody goes in there, alters it, goes away, right? This happens constantly, which reserves the power to tax exclusively for Congress. The court determined tariffs are taxes, and the 1977 IEEPA's power to regulate imports does not explicitly delegate this taxing authority to the president. Right? Well, they don't care. He's going to keep yelling that regardless, and they're going to ignore it, act like it's only Democrats disagree, because that's what they do. Justin Amash responds to his post and says, according to J.D. Vance, a Supreme Court decision that upholds the law and halts lawlessness is the real lawlessness. You see how this works? This is the post-truth world. This is the inverse of the reality. This is not an accident. And then he gripes about the president's power being limited. And he goes, yeah, that's the point of the Constitution. The framers deliberately constrain the president. They act like somehow by not allowing him whatever he wants at all times is somehow a bastardization of the power structure. That, again, either means they don't understand the way this was created, or they don't care and they're willing to make you look stupid to get what they want. Called him out. That's crazy. That means they think so little of you. Speaker Johnson, same point. No one can deny that the president's use of tariffs has brought in billions of dollars. Well, depends on what we're actually pointing to in the larger sense, but that doesn't matter if we're talking about money that goes to you. None of this has gone to you. You're paying. That's what's so crazy about the way this is going to end up in a second with where they're claiming that money needs to go. But it says he claiming no one can deny, well, anybody can deny anything, but that he brought in all this money and here's the point, and created immense leverage for American trade strategy for the securing strong reciprocal America first trade agreements with countries that have been taking advantage of American workers for decades. What you effectively did was strong arm countries into getting what you want for a temporary gain that in no way actually translated to Americans. Maybe it would have in the future. My point, though, is these short-term strong-arm tactics would guarantee, in my experience, that it would end up hurting trade for this country or any number of things. You're basically dealing at the butt of at the barrel of a gun, in an analogy sense, right? You're strong-arming or at a fist or whatever. You're basically just using strength and force to dictate what you want. And I should say it more specifically, financial strength and force. You're using your financial position to basically muscle people to get what you want. And sure, you could do that. And sure, it might even benefit them, not you, them to the short term. But when has that ever worked? The point is that agreements like that tend to function with respect, tend to function with some level of agreement or equally beneficial. That's not what they're doing. That's my point about China and the U.S. government in policy in general. They're going around just taking and stealing and forcing, while other groups, even if they're dishonest and criminal, are making agreements with other countries. But it says Congress and the administration will determine the best path forward in the coming weeks. Oh, now you want to include Congress. How funny how that works. Johnson, you guys have been completely inept. War, anything. Speaker. This is how he should be remembered as one of the most weak, ineffectual speakers of the House I've ever seen in this country. The truth is he just works for Trump, and everyone can see that. And this is somebody who they hate each other, and he's still willing to bow to whatever Trump needs, which probably tells you it's something above Trump. But Mike Young says, yes, tariffs brought in revenue. That's sure. They also raised prices on groceries, cars, and farm equipment while inventing retaliation against our exporters. If we truly want to honor American workers, we should choose policies that cut their costs and expand their markets, not ones that quietly tax them. And his point, and actually, like I said, actually end up shrinking the markets that Americans, this is history, guys. Now, it's not to say it'll always go this way, but you see, they're doing this for their benefit. And again, this is how little respect they have for us, that they are willing to lie to you, even though you know that we can look it up, because they think we'll fall for it. Now, as Usual Wales points out, the U.S. government may now owe U.S. companies, and others, by the way, $175 billion in tariff refunds. Well, as Mark rightly points out, this is Americans. It's a little gif of, I think it's what is it? The one with the spinning top. I forget the name of the movie. Anyway, it's a clip of Leonardo DiCaprio kind of waking up and looking around, and it's like, this is Americans realizing American citizens, which is what happened, paid $175 billion while he claimed he was making you money in illegal tariffs, and it's being refunded to companies instead of you. So in effect, you could argue that this was the plan even. I don't not necessarily know if I believe that or not, but think about it. A situation to create a transfer of wealth, just like with COVID or any other situation, that just extracts wealth from the population and puts it in the hands of the elitist upper class or just elitist class. Think about it. Because why would that go back to these companies? Shouldn't. They didn't. This feels like a transfer of wealth. How many more ways do we need to see that this administration is not in the interest of the American people or the working man? Here's what Trump actually just said.
Without tariffs, what would you do? You know what? Everybody would be bankrupt. Everybody. The whole country would be bankrupt. And I have to wait for this decision. I've been waiting forever. And the language is clear that I have the right to do it as president.
And that's the kind of stuff you get. Then you get these mindless repeaters that go out and go, the language is clear, don't you know? In what document, bud? Oh, I don't know. Trump said it. In what? It's not, though. If you look at the language, you can literally see that, but they don't care. They just repeat, and that's millions of people. But it's the same on either side, really. But the real point, guys, is the money. Without tariffs, what would you do? Everybody would be bankrupt. I mean, come on, guys. Think about how dumb that is. What you're saying is that everybody in this country would go bankrupt because you don't make us pay more money for our goods that you get money. I mean, think about how stupid that is. You can go back before taxes or any situation and realize that exchanging goods, production, that's revenue. And ultimately, government getting involved is what always causes all these problems. But he's just trying to convince you that we have to have whatever he's confusing you with, otherwise everything falls apart. Well, that's because things are falling apart. Not because of that, but because we're finally starting to see that this thing is built on sand. And as that's happening, they're literally absorbing every possible thing they can before it all sinks. That's what it feels like. That same kind of thing. This guy's just, it's a meme of Trump going, this is a cat over a duck. And then all of the bottom going, that's a cat. Just whatever, just lie. Okay, we all repeat the lie. That's what keeps happening. And of course, to finish this segment, he comes out after all of that and says this. Oh, did I forget to grab it? Here, let me grab this. I'll read it to you while I'm grabbing that. Or if I can multitask. Effective immediately, all national security tariffs, Section 232, and existing Section 301 tariffs remain in place. Oh, great. So they rule that Trump can't do this with emergency orders, right? That was the crux of the point. And then so his answer is to use emergency orders to make sure it continues. I mean, what more do you need to see to recognize lawlessness? This is very, very clear.
In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can...
There's some note that Lutnick wrote for him. I mean, what do you even read? The point is that the reality of his powers, I mean, this is where we're at with this whole thing. And Section 2, I can do whatever I want. Like these are not true. It's just the reality. If you understand even remotely the reality of how this was built in order to check power, why would there be a situation where they can just always do what they want? It doesn't make any sense. And everybody knows that. So he's just reading off something that says what he thinks is the reality. It doesn't mean it's the reality.
Use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122, over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this.
Great. So, the team's going to cheer no matter what. That's what they do. But just recognize that this is, an extension. It's just one more of the same kind of things. Now, on the corruption side of this, before we finish with the glyphosate focus, Aaron Day points this out. This is the most corrupt administration in U.S. history. Now, you can disagree with that. Corruption is quite obvious, though. Howard Lutnick's family firm reportedly bought tariff refund rights for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar after Liberation Day last year. Think about this. Now the Supreme Court has struck down the tariffs. Translation, for every $100 invested, Lutnick's sons may have just made 3 to 5 times their money. Insiders knew. Regular Americans paid. Welcome to corrupt America, where policy is a profit scheme. Guys, think about this. Now, still don't know for sure. Could have just been their reaction when they saw it falling and they said, screw it, let's make money. But if you recognize Lutnick did this last year, which is we're only talking about what was Liberation Day, what's the day, we're talking about at the most some months ago. And so the reality is that this was ultimately ended up where they transferred money, or at least it's about to transfer money from basically what they collected back to the companies. And at the same time, they're making investments that gain them money from the fact that this has now, the refund to the tariffs. So if you know that they set this up to gain from the refund and that the money will go back to companies that they were working with, how else do you view that? Now, again, I'm going to be clear that I can't prove that was designed, but that is the outcome. I just, it's insane to me, the level of corruption on its face or I'm just to keep going since I've already taken too long in this part. This is the same conversation. I was going to jump to real quick is the pump and dump scams from crypto. I mean, they're in your face. I talked about this the moment he got elected, and the Trump coin, it went down like 70%, and it just stayed there. They just stole money from everybody. And Max Blumenthal says Trump Inc. corruption is so extensive, it's difficult to keep tabs. Besides cashing in on the tariff policy, he personally engineered financial sleaze lord, he calls him, Howard Lutnick, is also deregulating crypto while holding a $600 million stake in Tether. To paper over the conflict of interest, he handed control of Tether to his 26-year-old son, who now serves as the chair of Cantor Fitzgerald, which is the company. That's not how that's supposed to work. It's still your family, Trump's sons, same conversation. And it says, with Lutnick's apparent blessing, Tether has relocated to, guess what? El Salvador, where Trump's backed crypto gulag master Bukele, exempts it from taxation and regulation. See how that works out? You literally hand deliver him the MS-13 members that he's working with. He gives you a tax-exempt regulation situation. I mean, whether that's the exchange or not, this is a tit-for-tat dynamic, and these people are corrupt. All of this is a conflict of interest and shouldn't be existing in the first place. But hey, no one signed ethics pledges, so who cares, right? No, they had no intention of upholding those ethics. 10th Amendment Center says corruption, plunder, and waste. Thomas Jefferson said that's just what we'd get with too much centralized power. He warned us. We didn't listen. He said, quote, our country is too large to have all its affairs directed by a single government. Public servants at such a distance and from under the eye of their constituents will, from the circumstance of distance, be unable to administer and overlook all the details necessary for the good government of the citizen. And the same circumstance, by rendering detection impossible to their constituents, will invite the public agents to corrupt, plunder, and waste. And there we are. And frankly, you could say Trump's the same thing. Now, Aaron Day points out, a sitting U.S. president launched 2 meme coins that effectively wiped out $3.4 billion from retail investors, while insiders quietly cashed out $600 million. Well, that's an interesting overlap. Talking about $600 million. What was it again? I just think that's interesting. Not that who knows if there's a connection or not. It just happens to be the same amount he has a stake in Tether. He has had that before this, so I don't think that's what that came from, right? But interesting nonetheless, right? So, but the point is you can prove all of this, guys. These insiders cashed out quietly right before it all collapsed, and the MAGA supporters lost billions of dollars. And there's multiple examples of this. Here is the Trump brothers, or sons, excuse me. Here's brothers too, but here's what they have to say about this. And it's edited, right? There's more to it, but realize what they're ultimately saying here. It's a corrupt situation, right? So if they were honestly trying to change that, then they wouldn't fall in and use the corrupt situation and just go, well, that's, it's the way it is, which is what they're doing.
What the critics would say, they'd say that the credibility factor is the Trump name and the Trump White House, and that everyone, is here to curry favor.
I think the great irony is they didn't give us much of a choice. When you had they created this monster. When you had either one of us could have called any banker in New York over the last 20 years and gotten a loan for a building, and we just realized we were sort of the top of the Ponzi scheme that was banking.
Well,
okay. So we were on top of the Ponzi scheme that is banking, which is exactly the point, right? Okay. So let's just say you think that you want to save America. Would you then step into that and then just take advantage of that Ponzi scheme and effectively, extract money from the people that you are fighting or you claim you're fighting for? And the MAGA people themselves in particular, with your fake phone, with your fake cryptos. That's all happened, by the way. Remember the Trump phone? What happened? Oh, yeah, that's right. It was made in China and Israel, and it was a lie. That's right. Same with the Eric Prince phone. It's corrupt. It's corrupt on its face. And so here, if you're saying that we're on the top of this, as he's writing, Eric, they said the quiet part out loud. The corruption runs deep, he writes, and suddenly all the people who were outraged that Hunter Biden worked for a Ukraine gas company suddenly don't care that Trumps are making billions of dollars, much of which is from foreign countries and governments. I mean, it's a good point, regardless of how partisan and ridiculous this guy can be. The reality is that if you're going to be nonpartisan and objective, I'm going to be outraged at a Hunter Biden story and be outraged about the Trumps doing the same thing. Not the same thing, but using the corruption to profit off of profit from the willful decision to not try to solve the problem. So last couple points. This is an account called Cuck Turd saying, I guess I just said that. I spelled it out earlier. Trump and his kids are opening their own poly market. Says they can now personally profit off of every House vote, press conference, whatever you want to, inside information. Trump's social media company is going to be launching a prediction betting marketplace. I mean, any of these things, there should be a law I don't even know how they could just give money to somebody they know and then they could do it. But the fact that people are now betting on decisions being made, these people are profiting off of this. Internally, 100%. It's being shown in so many ways. This poly market overlap, people are betting on wars or betting on policy decisions that they're involved in. I mean, the corruption is so acute, so obvious right now. So now they're just going, shoot, let's get involved. Let's build our own. Seems to be what's happening. Lastly, let's not forget from the crypto side of it, it's, as I wrote, they're all doing it. All the so-called rebels fighting the deep state, they need to scam you with pump and dump money laundering operations because, for freedom or whatever. This is what's happening. This is Malay, same thing. They all did this for the most part. They had this own little version of it. He pumped up his coin and it fell, collapsed. Nobody seemed to care, apparently. So on the point of corruption, guys, I actually, like I said at the beginning, I'm just kind of shocked that this is the way this is going because of RFK Jr., because of what Trump has said before, because of his claims. Not like he's not even caught lying about damn near everything else, but the way this has gone down. My point is I think this has been driving from something else. But I'm going to include my recent discussion because it is relevant to this from yesterday, 2 days ago. New bill supported by White House bypasses RFK Jr.'s HHS in order to fund Gavi. Also, Israel mentioned, 35 times in the bill? Now, it's only passed the House, which is predominantly majority is Republican, and it's in the Senate. Who knows how long that'll take? Maybe it'll never pass. But what I'm trying to highlight is that the White House, which I'll actually grab and show you again, since that's important for the claim. This is the White House direct post from the executive office of the president. This January, this year. And it says very clearly, the administration supports H.R. 7006. That's the bill. That's the bill we're talking about, and that bill is explicit. It's, and it's not about just funding. It's making sure that the money circumvents the HHS and goes through the State Department to go to Gavi. It's right in the bill. And we discussed it all in here, as well as the fact that, what was the other one? It was, there's something else there too. Anyway, the point was it's just contradicting MAHA and everything else they're talking about. There's other vaccine companies. There's tons of stuff in there that contradict that's what it was. There's things about funding HIV prevention in Africa or climate change, to all the things that they're all like, Democrats are so crazy. And it's all right there in the bill that they predominantly support. Very frustrating. So on the point of glyphosate, it's just one more example of them just completely contradicting what they told people they were going to do in the regard to MAHA. So Kaylee Ryerson says, just as the large MAHA base begins to consider what to do at midterms, the president issues an executive order to expand domestic glyphosate production, the very same carcinogenic pesticide that MAHA cares about most. Why would he do this before? You see what I'm saying? Before midterms? What's going on? Who is driving this and what's the objective here? Because it does not seem that his agenda is to win over his own people. So here's what the actual document said. This is from today. Promoting, and it's glyphosate, but it's specifically of phosphorus elements, which I find very relevant, seeing as how Israel is using white phosphorus and glyphosate all over the place as weapons. Promoting the national defense by ensuring an adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides. Now it says elemental phosphorus is pervasive in defense supply chains and therefore crucial to military readiness and national defense. Well, in regard to white phosphorus, it is a war crime. It is a weapon. It is illegal to use outside of the ridiculous allowance for signaling, which they don't need to do. Plenty of other things they can. The bottom line is they get caught using it in the middle of the day all the time, killing civilians, and they claim signal. No, they're murdering people with illegal weapons. But why that would be something you demand to be, I think, in my opinion, I think it's clear, because everything I'm seeing this administration do is because there's some other entity that is demanding that it happen. Elemental phosphorus is also a critical precursor element for the production of glyphosate-based herbicides, which play a critical role in maintaining America's agricultural advantage by enabling farmers to efficiently and cost-effectively produce food and livestock. That's insane. That's not true. The reality is that glyphosate has destroyed our industries and forced them into a place where they have to drench these things in toxic chemicals that do in many ways affect the way that they grow, despite what they claim. And that they now are forced to use it, one, because of there are many overlaps, because of genetically modified patented seeds that are being used. That's the whole way this works, right? You're forced to use these seeds because they can resist the dangerous chemical you're spraying on them because they've modified the seed. The problem, though, is those seeds then blow and mix and blend with other things, which has been proven. And that's why you have like Food Inc. documentary that shows farmers who are having their land stolen because Monsanto, now Bayer, comes in and goes, hey, we tested and your seed is our patent. Even though they didn't pay for that and aren't using it, they've been growing their own organic seed for their entire life. They now own that farm. Literally has happened countless times. So what you're talking about is something that you have illegitimately forced on this country, made to be so ubiquitous that it's damn near everything, and now saying we have to maintain it because, well, it's necessary for our production. Well, maybe because you forced in this problematic situation. You see how that works? The last thing we should be doing is growing this problem, even if it is ubiquitous, and making it something that is not just used, but like to the point to where he's going to make it an absolute for everything you're consuming in this country. As the most widely used crop protection tools in the United States, he writes, agriculture, glyphosate-based herbicides are a cornerstone of this nation's agriculture productivity and rural economy, allowing United States farmers and ranchers to maintain high yields, ridiculous, and low production costs while ensuring that healthy, affordable food options remain within reach for all American families. Now, the argument always goes that it increases yield. I can't verify that for many reasons. But let's just even say that it does increase yield. That's not the real point here. It is about the reality of the risks to our health. So you could even argue that more food will increase the life or whatever, but if you actually factor in the obviously detrimental effects of this in hundreds of ways, you are reducing the population. You're reducing people's lifespans. And the extra food you think is there wouldn't change anything. On top of the fact that I don't even think that's the reality, but that's my opinion. It says there is no direct one-for-one chemical alternative to glyphosate-based herbicides. Yeah, but nobody wants this. This is a dangerous thing that is used as a weapon in other places by Israel. And you're using this to treat our food, and there's no one-for-one chemical alternative because what they're talking about is that we have created this dangerous thing that we claim stops all these dangerous bugs and all these dangerous things. And so if we stop that, we're going to have to use more than one thing. Well, you see, this is the same kind of argument. We can't give everybody due process. That's just difficult. Well, damn. So since when did we go, oh, that's just hard. Let's go the simple route because that's always the right path. This is dangerous. This is deadly. This is cancerous. Why in the world would we go, oh, well, it's just easier? Too bad. You see, I'm willing to bet most farmers who are not just mainstream monocrop monsters because of the way we built this would demand that this wouldn't be the reality. To grow what they want, as much as they want, where they want, how they want, and have people come by what they want. You know, a real peer-to-peer economy. The difference is they need this to be the only way because small farmers don't exist in this world. You only have monocrop, massive corporate farmers, and everybody else just goes to those. That's what it is. This is what they're driving in. This was starting to change. And here we are. The MAHA, Make America Great Again group was the one making sure it never stops. Now, that's not the people, mind you. That's the government pretending to make this country great again. Now it says there's a lack of access to glyphosate-based herbicides would critically jeopardize agriculture productivity. I disagree. Adding pressure to the domestic food system and may result in a transition to cropland to use other uses due to low productivity. So just like the Stardust Solutions point, right? You could argue this was clearly manufactured to create the choke point where we can't stop using it because then we're screwed. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like they're literally setting up these genetically manipulative choke points with our natural processes to where we have to deal with them instead of the natural, like you can't just plant something. You have to deal through their weird system. That's how the geoengineering conversation started Solutions. We talked about it. If you missed that show, it's an Israeli company, and they're planning to start testing it in April 2026 everywhere. And that is about literally something that even the best experts in the world are saying, once you start that, you can't stop, because then it will get worse. So then forever, you're stuck with them doing this for hundreds of years. That's their plan. I mean, how does this sound like something anybody is even regarding as a solution? To me, that's the same thing right here. But it's too late now. We're done. We're there. But it doesn't mean we can't roll it back. It just might actually be difficult. Now, I'm not even going to say that means less food. It just means that this will be something that will be a process. Ensuring an adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides is thus crucial to national security and defense. Whatever. I mean, it just, so too can anything be. By that logic, you could say, okay, fine. Anything we use in a daily process is then therefore national security, because that keeps us fed and moving and awake, or whatever it is, to therefore make sure we can defend it. Or that you can make it, by the way they're doing this, which is what they've been doing for years, everything. Anything, everywhere, all the time, whatever you want it to be, can be national security. And therefore, we can't show it to you. It's top secret, and you don't get to know. Shut up and go away. Constitution doesn't matter. I mean, that's where we are today. Indeed, he writes, there is only a single domestic producer of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides. And this producer, that shall not be named, Bayer, does not meet our annual needs for these inputs. For that reason, more than 6 million kilograms of elemental phosphorus are imported from other countries annually. Think about this when most Americans are clearly not wanting this, and you're going so far as to import what you need to make sure that we keep doing it. I accordingly find that consistent with the Department of Interior's design, elemental phosphorus is a scarce material that is critical to national defense and security. Only in a world where you're doing what they're doing. Right? America first, none of this is none of this is important. If you're doing what they're doing, well, yeah, now you need all of the defense tools and weaponry and chemical weapons and AI manipulate. That's what they're building it out for. None of this is about American interest in any way, shape, or form, especially from an America first perspective. Now it says, to allocate materials, services, and facilities as deemed necessary or appropriate to ensuring a continued and adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides. Forever. Just that's the plan, forever. Accordingly, the Secretary shall ensure that any order, rule, or regulation issued under this section does not place the corporate viability of any domestic producer or element of phosphorus or glyphosate at risk. So not only does it say this is necessary, he writes into it that you can't even take action that causes a risk to the corporate viability of the company. Isn't that fascism? Aren't you literally just blending you're by government act creating a shield to go after the company because it's interest of national security? Phosphorus, but glyphosate. In what world does a company that's supposed to be in some kind of a capitalist, supplying, what's the word I'm looking for? Where it's based on merit or whatever, where you can just go, well, no, we need it, so therefore they're always good. Well, how about the people investing in that? Great, we're going to make millions of dollars. How about they already knew that, and that's why they're already invested? Here we go, round and round we go. Guys, no matter how you look at this, it's corrupt. But on top of it all, this is deadly, dangerous. It's not what we want, and it's not what Americans were calling for. Farm action? Here's what Trump was saying. Well, did I miss all these? Yeah, I did. How did I miss that? So this is 2024. Now, this is where it really has to really register, guys. You can agree. You can think it's right. You can even think that it's not dangerous. Well, if that's the case, then explain to me why Trump was telling you that it was dangerous back in 2024. All right? I mean, again, you can go, oh, he changed his mind. This point is he either was wrong here or lying, or he's wrong or lying now. Right? It's pretty simple.
We're joining forces to defeat government corruption, restore free speech, and make America healthy again. We're going to make America healthy again, We're a nation that...
It just reads off what he was, what do they want to hear? Oh, that's right. This is what they like to hear in this place. Blah, 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 blah. Is that what they did? No.
Is not doing well in a lot of ways, and we're not doing so well with health, but we're going to solve a lot of those problems, I think, over the next short period of time. A lot of it's common. A lot of that's common sense, too. It's all common sense when you get right down to it.
Yeah.
We're going to get toxic chemicals out of our environment, and we're going to get them out of our food supply. We're going to get them out of our bodies.
Yeah.
We'll get them out of our body, right?
All right. Hooray. And then, oh, whoops, never mind. Right? Oh, yay. Oh, the things he said, it's great. And then does the opposite. It's like that cartoon, that video somebody made with the kid drawing the line in the sand. It's just, there's only so many times you can see this and not recognize that they either never cared or they will never care because it's about the team. 2024, we're going to get it out. 26, crucial national security. Okay. Well, here's RFK Jr. 2024. The herbicide glyphosate is one of the likely culprits in America's chronic disease epidemic. How can you have him in MAHA as the leading position of HHS and then have Trump do things repeatedly, like self-amplifying COVID shots or Stargate or everything else we're talking about? Now, I know you guys don't want to hear it. I'm belaboring the point because it's important. Much more widely used than in Europe. Shockingly, much of our exposure comes from its use as a desiccant on wheat, not as an herbicide. From there, it goes straight into our bodies. My USDA will ban that practice. It's both, by the way, and he said the same. He's just making the point is that the worst example is there, but all of it is now being used and is a national security imperative. I simply said, you still there, Kennedy? How can you be silent on this? Which apparently he is. Let's double check, though, since he might have posted something since I went live. Nope. Last post was on the 19th. Nothing. Not a peep. Here's his personal account. Or rather, this is the secretary. Right, this is the personal account. Nope. No, he's not required to comment. But I mean, come on, guys. The point was, if this was something that you didn't agree with as the head of HHS and somebody who's supposed to be leading MAHA, you would go, whoa, okay, I'm commenting on this. But you know what? Trump would lose his mind and probably do something about you. Fire you, attack you, something. I mean, or you have to agree that he just doesn't care. Who knows? You can decide for yourself, or he's being blackmailed. I don't know. But you have to realize that he's not genuine for whatever reason if he's not really pushing back on this stuff. And he hasn't been for a while. Oh, and this is the one I played in the beginning.
Well, I believe that glyphosate causes cancer.
Simple. And here we are. Now we're going to make it a national security imperative. He would call that out. Here's his running mate when he was running for president.
I just spoke to the EPA this morning. There's a big group of people, scientists out there for 10 years now. They've been trying to get them to stop glyphosate spraying in harvest. So, you know, farmers will use glyphosate throughout the crop cycle, but a practice that we do here in the United States that's banned in Europe is pre-harvest desiccation, which
this is what RFK was talking about.
Which is spraying the crops to kill the weeds, to loosen the crops so that they're easier to harvest. But
now realize that the same point, right? So even if you took away, because ultimately both of them are examples of putting it on your crops, right? But the first example is where it's on the crops as they grow, which does absorb and does ultimately, that's the problem. Then the last part, though, what they're arguing, and it's far more damaging and dangerous, is when they just drench it right before it's being harvested to help it dry out. So even if you took that last part away, because I'm worried that's how he's framing that. Like, that's the real problem. It's not, in fact, it's half the problem. That's just how it makes it so prevalent. And so it's still in everything. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was important to point that out because I worry he's making that argument to sort of create the secondary. Well, we stopped that one and now we win, right? No, you didn't. It's still happening. But anyway, so that's what she's talking about. Think about that with all how dangerous this is, drenching them before they then eat dry. That leaves that residue and you eat that.
Problem with that is the residues. The glyphosate residues don't have time to dry out and dissipate. So we're eating heavy loads of glyphosate.
Yuck.
And we're,
buying non-organic, foods that are sold at, Walmart and whatever else.
Chatting with the EPA this morning, I zoomed in. I was virtual, but the rest of the group was there in person. And for 10 years, this group has been telling the EPA about this. And for 10 years, the EPA has failed to act. This is one of the easiest things we could.
Yep. See, easiest. Okay. Where's RFK Jr.? Where's Trump? They don't want to change it, guys, because either corporate interests are too important or something else is driving that bus. The last thing is whether it's what's good for you, whether it's safe and healthy for you, because it's obvious, guys. It's self-evident. And EPA, well, yeah, we know how that works. Ask them about dioxins and PFAS and whatever else. They are not what they pretend to be. They might have been at one point, but it's been captured like every other part of this government. And I don't mean that as literally every single person, but the institutions, the entities, Congress, these things don't operate. I mean, we all argue, but we all complain about it. The question we should be asking not only is not just why it's done, but who and how. Because something is absolutely dictating or influencing how this is happening. So here's just an example of somebody. I'm not familiar with them, but what is it? Almost 300,000 followers. Glyphosate is safe and effective. And at first I thought it was a joke. I thought this was like a parody because safe and effective. And it says, and the White House just issued an executive order to produce more of it. Excellent. Because here's another post where they write, the acute toxicity of glyphosate is considerably less than that for a common substance like vitamin D. I mean, I'm still kind of like, is it a joke? Is this like a parody account? It doesn't appear to be. That's insane. Not even their studies make that argument. So this seems to be somebody, either a joke, which it still may be, and I just can't see how where the punchline is, or it's somebody who's willing to just lie to you for even their own studies that make it out to be not as dangerous. Do not argue it's benign like vitamin D. It's crazy. And this is the same administration who is right now trying to push back on the fluoride ruling. They don't care about your health, guys. So to finish, here's just a ton of there's a lot of it, by the way. These are mostly articles, though. It's not the 3-hour shows. I recommend you read through these, guys. Now, this is a lot of older work. Some of these I wrote myself. Some of these go back, 2016 forward. Then remember on these, some of these written a long time ago. So not only has my opinions and views changed quite a bit, I'm damn near consistent or pretty damn consistent with what I thought then. I've just learned more over the years. So keep that in mind, as well as the fact that the way a lot of these older articles work, I linked a lot of them back then to like things. I don't like this practice anymore because I think it doesn't make as much sense, but I would link a lot of things to just other articles. So that's not a link to the claim. It's a link to something about glyphosate, which is, you can see why I don't like that as much. And the links would end up down here. So just know that some of these older ones, the links that you're looking for will be at the bottom. Whereas all the new stuff today, they're hyperlinked right into the article. I think that's important because you'll go through and be like, where's the study? And it goes to a link to TLAV's article. That's again why I don't like that practice today, because people think you're just using your own information to prove things, But every one of these links to studies, many of which I include, or just something else that will verify these claims from, a scientist or a doctor or whatever else. And on top of that, a lot of it is mainstream, directly from mainstream science publications, but also a lot of it is independent work. So don't let that then make you think it's not valid. Look into it and you'll find that this stuff is exactly what's going on. And this goes back to 2016. Monsanto's chemical glyphosate makes its way into 85%. This is then, it's way worse now, 85% of personal hygiene cotton products. Now, just so jumping to the end, it's ubiquitous, guys. It is everywhere. And this has been scientifically proven. That's why it's so alarming to me. But it's all the cotton products you're using, clothes you're wearing, the foods you're eating. It's everywhere. Monsanto weed killer found in 14 popular German beers, 2016 March. I found this crazy because the story went that these are like craft beers they make in Germany. And they're like, generationally and so important to them. And the ingredients are important. They're craft and organic and whatever, right? And they tested them and they all had glyphosate. And I said, how this tends to go, sort of like with the farm-raised salmon, where they go, oh, well, turns out now it's all farm-raised because of the way we made this, they bled and bred, So then they just kind of pass a rule that goes, well, now it's all the same. So therefore now it's all, they basically make the argument that some of these groups that are clearly farm-raised salmon are just now not farm-raised because of their waving of their hand. It's insulting because it's not true. So in this case, with the way glyphosate is, as well as this next story about wines, they just kind of go, well, now that it's ubiquitous, it is organic, essentially. They don't make that argument, but they just no longer argue. Technically, if it has glyphosate, it wouldn't be organic. But they still call them organic. Same for the wines in Napa Valley. But they're not, technically. But because they want to call it that, they just go, well, it is, though, because it's in everything. So right is, well, that's not really the term organic, but a bastardization of it. Anyway, same thing here with the beers. They were very upset about that, but they're going to keep making their beers because now it's everywhere. But it's, you lost something there. Monsanto's glyphosate found in all organic wines tested in Napa Valley, even organic ones. That was why I was saying that. This was 2016. I believe it was March 28th. And again, you could look this up. I'm including all of this. Moms Across America did great work on this when they put in the work. This was Zen Honeycutt. I actually hosted a panel on a CHD event with her. She's very intelligent. And it's you can look at it for yourself. The truth is that now that it's there, again, it's everywhere. They just kind of put it behind them. It's sort of like the dioxin argument, which is what I think they were trying to accomplish and maybe already have. That's not organic. It's also dangerous for you. So that's lost forever. This one, I titled this, the piss test heard round the world, 150 European Parliament members to test urine for glyphosate. I've brought these up many times over the years. This is April 2016. So the way this worked out quickly, ultimately 150 of them were supposed to test their urine. I think it amounted to 48 of them actually going through the test, and every single one of them had tested positive for glyphosate. Here's the actual Guardian article about it. 150 MPs are expected to give their urine samples. Now, guess what, guys? You'll be completely not surprised to find out that almost nobody followed up with the results. It's just, of course, because why would we want you to find out that it was a problem? But you can, I very much did, and you can follow it up for yourself. Almost all Germans contaminated with glyphosate. This is the same conversation, but slightly different. You know, the point is, in this case, 48, I believe, again, it was the number. You can, all the links are in here, had glyphosate, even though many of them were arguing that that would prove that it wasn't a problem, right? And so here we go, in everyone in everyone's urine in 2016. And the overall point with this one was, from a German perspective in March, they found that it was basically in every single person in Germany. Think about where we are right now with what they're doing, guys. This has been clear for so long. Groundbreaking review shows how glyphosate alters DNA toward chronic illness. 2016. Here's studies. Now, I recently reached back out to Stephanie Seneff. We had an interview with her, with Denny Ranku as well. Right here. Stephanie Seneff, Denny Ranku, round table, glyphosate, mRNA, and spike proteins destroying your body. She's very intelligent. She's been working on this as a PhD on glyphosate for a long time, and argued in this interview that it was synergistically working to destroy your body with the COVID-19 shot, almost as if they've been designed that way. And this is one of those studies back in 2013, glyphosate's suppression of cytochrome P450 enzymes and amino acid biosynthesis by the gut microbiome, pathways to modern disease. And a follow-up, 2016, glyphosate pathways to modern diseases 5, amino acid analog and glycine in diverse proteins. It says glyphosate, its presence in food for human consumption and animal feed is ubiquitous. Back in 2016. Epidemiological studies have revealed a strong correlation between the increasing incidence in the United States of a large number of chronic diseases, as has been completely increasing every year, and the increased use of glyphosate herbicide on corn, soy, and wheat crops, which is perfectly correlated with that. Link with diabetes, obesity, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, pulmonary edema, adrenal insufficiency, hypothyroidism, Alzheimer's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, prions disease, lupus, mitochondrial disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, neural tube defects, infertility, hypertension, glaucoma, osteoporosis, fatty liver disease, kidney failure. The correlation data together with the direct biological evidence make a compelling case for glyphosate action as a glycine analog to account for much of its toxicity. 2016. The first long-term study, August 2016, that confirms the world's most popular pesticide is wiping bees off the planet. This one's 2016, September. Another shocking study finds glyphosate present in childhood vaccines. Here's the study. All of them are included. I just think some of these are more powerful than others. 2016, Microbe Inotech Laboratories, Inc. They literally tested this in a laboratory and compared it and showed that they were in these. It's can't be more clear, guys. Here's another one from 2016, September. Glyphosate found in most vaccines. Now, that's not necessarily the case today. I argue it's probably still predominantly the problem, but a lot has changed since 2016. Glyphosate contaminants in processed brand name foods. 2017. You can go through the list. It's way worse today. It's this again. The point is, it's everywhere. It's in everything. But you can look, and it's in all these brand name. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You know, the problem is even organic foods and stuff is questionable because of the way they've done this, guys. That's what's so messed up about this. But at the very least, you should try to avoid, things that are not. But here, and that's why you should grow your own if it's possible. It's the study that goes over all of this, glyphosate on basically every single piece of food you could find. Monsanto's glyphosate linked to major ocean and coral reef die-offs, June 2017. Another study shows how glyphosate and aluminum can operate synergistically to destroy the human brain. So it's funny how you could point to that. Now she's over here years later going, but look at this. Glyphosate's also working synergistically with this new COVID shot to destroy your body. So maybe glyphosate is some kind of primer. I mean, these are all just thoughts that we should be having because it is a deadly thing. It's been clear for a very long time. 2015, aluminum and glyphosate can synergistically induce pineal gland pathology, connection to gut dysbiosis and neurological disease. This is a major study from 2014, it looks like, 2015 published Agricultural Sciences. 2018, Whitney Webb. New study finds links between Roundup, glyphosate, herbicide, and fetal defects. This is the study. Perinatal exposure to a glyphosate-based herbicide impairs female reproductive outcomes and induces second-generation adverse effects. And you'd think that would change something, right? Oh, hold on. What was it? It was this one. You'd think it would change something, right? But you could have stuff like this. I just still think this is crazy how clear this, and the study is just as clear. It's a headline from today, but 2023. Exposure to PFAS can reduce women's fertility by 40%. That's not even the newest one. There's plenty of them that make the same allegation, but yet that doesn't matter, apparently. You see, there's a clear disconnect between what we know and whether they care or do something about it. That's the point, is these have been there forever. And the reality is they know this stuff and don't care. 2018, weed-killing carcinogen glyphosate found in children's foods. But again, it's damn near every one of them. This one, 2019, glyphosate worse than we could imagine. It's everywhere. This is when this was starting to sink in, and the studies show it. It's in everything. Stephanie Seneff, Denny Rancoux, the overlap to the COVID-19 timeframe. mRNA, spike proteins, all coming together. This one is a larger one from Derek in 2023. Mexico battles U.S. government and Mr. Monsanto to protect food sovereignty. Now, actually, I should grab this one too. He recently did an article about this, and this is actually the kind of the point. Oh, I think that's the newer one. Let me see. Yeah, this is the newer one. Oh no, this is 24. I thought I had a new one. Let me do this real quick. See if what pops up. Because Derek recently did another article about this, and I want to include it if I can. That basically the bottom line is the United States government is trying to force the Mexican government to take their disgusting GMO corn, and they're trying to legally force them, and they're going, no, we don't want that, because they've got all these different heirloom corn species. What's the word I'm looking for? Not brands. That's got stuck in my head. Different types of corn. And they're just trying to force it in there. And I think there's an obvious reason for that. Oh, there it is. So this one, yeah, I think this is the one. So Mr. Biden administration and Mr. Monsanto continue to bully Mexico into that is the one, and accepting their GMO corn. So this is just the extension of the story. This one goes back to 2023, and he followed this up in 2024. And they're just still trying to force it on regardless. 2023, yet another study links lower sperm count with pesticides in general. And this one's important in a large sense, 2016, but it goes over a lot of stuff. And you'll find a lot of these old links just deleted and shows removed. But the complete history of Monsanto, the world's most evil corporation, which is pretty much the general consensus as it was taken back then. Now, here is another study about that. Genetically engineered crops, glyphosate, and the deterioration of health in the United States, 2014. I mean, it's just really, how many times can we understand what's going on before we do something about it? Now, Thomas Massey came out, and like I was just saying, maybe he sees that we care. Maybe he actually believes it. Based on his track record so far, it seems like he believes it. He says, this week, I will introduce the No Immunity for Glyphosate Act. This is why Trump hates him. To undo the recent executive order which promotes glyphosate Roundup and insulates manufacturers from liability. That is the part that was a step too far for me. You could argue that made sense, but you're literally shielding Bayer from, I mean, there's tons of lawsuits that are still going at them. And now you're shielding them from liability. Trump's literally protecting the company. Isn't that fascism? Is that socialism? In both? Yes. But so he's doing this to push back. Good. I support it. Whether or not you support Massey, whether or not he's genuine, I support the act because this is what I believe. That's how you do that. And I'm willing to bet you're going to get a lot more young politicians to start doing the same because it is showing look, people clearly gravitate towards it. Now, lastly, to bring this all together, I mean, I found this insane, the connection, like the timing of it all, which maybe it's not an accident, guys. On February 5th, it was discussed that Israel used glyphosate on the border of Lebanon as basically, arguably, well, first of all, it's important to highlight that they use glyphosate legitimately, as it reads right here, as to kill plants, to literally, because the whole point is the reason these things don't die is because they have a genetically modified thing in them that stops them from being hurt by this. So they use these things as a detriment, and that's going in your body, guys. And so they use this, or they claim they were going to use a non-toxic thing to spray, and then they dumped dangerously high glyphosate. So as Dropsite News writes, Israeli aircraft sprayed chemical substances over areas along the blue line, which is the demarcation line. I mean, Israel's been violating their supposed ceasefire there forever. They're illegally occupying Lebanon. It says, which Lebanon's Ministries of Agriculture and Environment confirmed included glyphosate at concentrations 20 to 30 times higher than normal levels. This is how they use all this stuff. It's how they use Agent Orange. They always claim, oh, it's an herbicide, or dioxins for that matter. The ministry said that spraying constitutes a hostile act and a grave violation of their sovereignty. Well, so too does illegally occupying their territory. The governments don't care. Warning of severe damage to vegetation, soil fertility, agricultural production, water sources, long-term public health. Think about this right as we're dealing with this now over here. They just tried to poison and damage us, and you're putting this in your body. Glyphosate is commonly used in military vegetation clearing operations. It is. Along borders to kill crops, grass, ground cover, strip concealment, create exposed buffer zones, damage agricultural livelihoods, and discourage civilian presence and return. Yeah, and you're putting that in your body, and Trump just told you it's going to go on all your food. And it already is, by the way. Lebanese authorities warn that its use in this context threatens food security and long-term environmental stability. Trump wants you to believe it's going to increase your food production. I mean, think about how weird this is. I don't think it's an accident, guys. I think there's something to this. But just realize that overall, this is something that is dangerous, that is damaging, no matter whether it's 30 times or just as it is. UNIFIL, the United Nations, said it was informed in advance about this, calling it a non-toxic chemical that would be dropped, forcing peacekeepers to suspend operations for more than 9 hours across roughly 1/3 of their area. They probably did something with that opportunity. UNIFIL called the action unacceptable and a violation of UN Security Council 1701, but nobody cares because it only matters when your enemies do that. Israel and the United States can say they violated the UN agreement, but then completely ignore it in every possible way they want to. It's not a secret. Everyone watches it. It happens every day. It just shows you where we actually are, guys. Look at this. They're spraying this to hurt, to kill, to remove. So this is the UN post yesterday morning. They told us they were going to post a non-toxic chemical. And they go on to make it clear that ultimately what we're talking about. It appears the non-toxic chemical Israel dropped on Lebanon was a very high concentration of glyphosate. And that was February 4th. Okay. Cancer research linked to the WHO classifies it as a probable carcinogen. Well, this is always how it works. It ends up probable carcinogen, and it just stays there forever. It is carcinogenic. Study after study after study has shown that. Then check this out. Okay. The next day. So the 6th, we're talking about it, or the 4th, 6th, so day and a half, 2 days later. According to local sources, Israeli settlers sprayed chemical pesticides on crops in several areas. This is the same place, guys, destroying their crops. Take a look at this. That's what they did. Now, of course, you could argue that they sprayed something other than glyphosate. You could argue they sprayed something in addition to glyphosate, which honestly wouldn't surprise me. But what we're finding out from the UN is they sprayed glyphosate in order to poison them, in order to hurt them. And that's what's on the ground. And that's the next day. And as she writes, that's slow genocide, right? Now think about this. Basically a couple of weeks later, Trump rolls out in a national order to make sure glyphosate is a national security imperative. Doesn't that seem weird? Even if it's not dangerous at all, you're being told to use it as a weapon, and then he rolls it out as a national security defense imperative. That seems weird. And it also makes you wonder whether or not there's some kind of connection to what Israel and the rest of them are doing. That could be nothing, though. My main point in all of this, I'm just discussing the possibilities. My main point is that Trump is violating the agreement with his own people. MAHA and everybody else in this country was pretty adamantly rolling back glyphosate. At least we were being told that. He comes out and just jams it forward. Don't know how you misunderstand that. Now, I'll leave you with a few more points here in a more broad sense. Here's a show we discussed RNAi gene silencing pesticides. That's a part of this conversation, and vaccines and their potential role in the COVID-19 illusion. We talked about the obligatory pesticide spraying in New York City, GM mosquitoes and flying vaccinators. Now they're all connected. Now the pesticide side of this is the same conversation, guys. If you don't know why, watch the show. It gets into the overlap, the pesticides, herbicide, the way that they're used in similar ways, endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now let's include the conversation of dioxins because it feels relevant. In the same way this is being abused, this conversation overlaps the Conyers, Georgia conversation, the East Palestine conversation, and how what we're talking about is a clear, as I wrote, murder by malfeasance, dioxin contamination, and the ongoing cover-up. It's the same conversation as glyphosate, maybe used and applied a different way, both used as weapons, both essentially being allowed to become ubiquitous in your life, despite the damage, and then profiting from that every possible way. All of these, by the way, all of them, are provably endocrine disrupting chemicals. All of them. Every pesticide. They don't have to be, by the way. Just so happens to be all the ones they use. Every part of your life, they're dumping this stuff in your face, and it's hurting you and your family and your animals, your crops. It's all very clear. Facts don't matter today, though. I had an interview with Dr. Peter McCullough about this as well, and we discussed both the COVID-19 injection as being one of those things. And I'll leave you with the article from Derek Brose from 2023, 5 ways your health is under attack and how to protect yourself. Because obviously it's super important that we remember that there are solutions here, right? That we need to be taking. I don't want to start advocating and promoting, take this out of your body. You guys know where to look. And it's hard to know for sure what's going to work the best and who's a scam, but use discernment. But whether we're talking about heavy metals or nanotech or whatever else, there are possible things to do to help clean your body and to protect yourself from these things. But the simple things is always, filter, use RO water if you can. Otherwise, some kind of, Berkey would at least get you some way there. Filter it, have organic food, grow your own crops, do your best to keep yourself safe from these things. You know that they exist and they are not healthy for you. So it's either taking the choice to sort of insulate and protect yourself from it or just to put your head in the sand. Now, in addition to the immediate actions of your own body, we need to stand up and do something to drive this back the other direction, executive order or not. An executive order is just a piece of paper that Trump wrote. It ultimately has no power unless they force it in, because that applies to a hell of a lot more of the executive branch, guys. So it's illegitimate in its own right, but they will do it. They've done it the whole time, but it's up to us. Republican, conservative, Republican, liberal, Democrat, or the rest of us that realize it's all ridiculous. How about we all just stand up and go, you know what, though? We may hate each other or this or that, but we all don't want that. It'd be really simple to recognize that. It'd be really simple to just take a stand against something that we all agree on. And it seems like there's plenty of those things if we stop letting the partisanship divide us. So thank you for tuning in today, guys. I appreciate you all. Our platform needs your support. So the more you can do, the more we'll continue to put out. Derek has some more stuff coming up soon. I've got an article from Robert I'm putting out tomorrow, as well as an interview I'm trying to put out tomorrow. Unless something happens, I'll put it off one more day and do a show. And there are some more. There is a project coming that I've been hesitant to point out just because I didn't want to announce it before it gets too close. But we're kind of in the midst right now of choosing a name and a new show coming. It involves Derek, Whitney, myself. There's some fun things coming your way. So look forward to that. Thank you for all of your support. We exist because of you. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.